Do you know what the realm is? It's the 1,000 blades of Aegon's enemies. A story we agree to tell each other over and over till we forget that it's a lie.
Hello everybody, welcome to We Vote. Today we're going to be talking about the next 7 days. We're going to do a 7-day countdown, one episode every day, looking at everything, looking at the lay of the land, and looking at this final lap, because some of the stuff that's been happening has just been noise, but now we're getting into the final stretch and we can see the picture more clearly. I want to say a lot of people were skeptical of my analysis in January when it came out and I was saying that the DA is going to get a certain percentage, the EFF is going to get a certain percentage, and the ANC is going to get a certain percentage. But we're 4 months into the race now, and I think a lot of those things are being proven to be quite accurate and quite true. Right. So here's observation number one about this particular election. The issues did not win. The issues did not win. So we all know right now that South Africa has the problems of poverty and inequality. These problems are symptoms. They are not actually the disease. They are the manifestations of a particular condition in our society. So what's that particular condition? I call it the 3 M's. Here are the 3 M's that are fucking up South Africa. Number one, mismanagement. Mismanagement of what you currently have, mismanagement of the resources and the apparatus of the state that you currently have leads to the maladministration, leads to the lack of delivery, leads to the mismaintenance of the resources that are currently in the state. So we all know right now that there are massive problems with mismanagement. But secondary to that, or not secondary in the sense of lesser, but number two would be miseducation. We know that we have notoriously undereducated our children. We know that we've expected the bare minimums from the public education system. We have used the public schooling system as a housing area for teenagers and young people, almost as a daycare for 12 years. And then we leave them at the end of those 12 years unprepared for the changing dynamics of the workplace. We are still teaching people for the economy of 1986 and not the economy of 2026, which is what we should be training our kids for. Miseducation has been the notorious Achilles heel of the South African story from 1994. And it's something that still hasn't been addressed. And to be honest, the policy ideas coming through from the manifestos have been very superficial. And this is why I'm saying that that issue has lost. Number 3 is misappropriation. There is rife looting of the fiscus and the taxes of the civilians by the powers that be. And that is a problem. Taken together, this triangle, mismanagement, miseducation, and misappropriation has fucked South Africa in a royal way. And that is what causes the inequality, that is what causes the poverty, and that is what causes the lack of delivery, whether it's crime, whether it's healthcare, whether it's just quality of learning. All of these come from this same triangle. But why do I say the issues have lost? The issues have lost because the drama has won. The personalities have won. The crowd dynamics, the singing, the noise has won. The race baiting, the rhetoric, all of these things have won. So we haven't had intelligent, meaningful, and nuanced discussions about how do we solve some of these problems. For me, most specifically, the miseducation problem. I think if you can solve that, you can directly reduce a lot of the other problems in society, specifically crime, healthcare, and also unemployment. I think that's one of the areas that should have been focused on more. But unfortunately, because of drama, because of personalities, because of the horse race, Jimmy Mani, Claudi, Julius Malema, Cyril, Musi, the subplots with the purple cow and this and all of the drama that has occupied our political space, it's been very entertaining. But the issues themselves have lost, and understanding of civics has been, diluted through this process. So we have got high participation, high energy in the conversation, but the quality of the conversation, did you see the cloudy hats? The quality of the conversation hasn't been helped by this particular electoral cycle. And the media has played into this, the debate shows, the ENCA town halls. It's just been a fiasco to watch those things. if you are somebody who actually cares about detail, about nuance, about a clear policy positionality. And unfortunately, the manifestos were very, very vague. All of the political parties were saying our manifestos are detailed, our manifestos cover this in detail. The reality is their manifestos did not. So that's the first observation that I'm making 7 days before we go into the ballot box, right? Is number one, the issues lost. Number two, what's happening in this particular election is a big party consolidation. The big three are going to cannibalize the smaller parties. You may not believe me, but wait for the 7 days to end out, because they've consumed a lot of the media space. They've consumed a lot of the attention, and smaller parties have struggled to differentiate themselves either on the left or on the right of the big parties. So what you'll see is that parties like the BLF, they like to believe they're going to parliament. You're not going to parliament, guys. It's not because I'm anti-black. It's not because I'm anti-Mkutama, although there is an argument to be made that I should be anti-Mkutama because he's a problematic individual. But aside from that, right? Aside from that, the reason why the BLF is not going to go to parliament is because there's nothing unique or distinctive about your policy positions as compared to the EFF. And because the EFF already has a proven track record, any voter considering you will most likely go with the EFF rather than take a bet on a party with so much administrative problems and dodgy characters and dodgy rhetoric. As much as people have concerns about the EFF, the BLF is 10x those concerns. So they're not going to make it. ATM movement, I think they've positioned themselves as we're going to make it, and they've got some numbers. I don't think they've got enough numbers to get more than one seat. ACDP, Freedom Front Plus, all of these other small parties, I really think that they're going to be washed away in the rivers of the big three. And what are those big three? It's going to be ANC, it's going to be EFF, and it's going to be DA, no particular order, although that may likely be the order. So this is what's going to happen. And a lot of people who've been asking, where is EFF going to get this percentage? Where is EFF going to get this percentage if the ANC is going to be so strong? It's going to get it from those smaller parties. It's going to get it from people who haven't been voting. In case you don't know my projections, I'm gonna give them to you just now shortly. But there's going to be a bloodbath for the smaller parties. So a lot of these people who've taken chances are purple cows. You guys don't have a chance. You're going to get about 2,500 votes, if you even get that much. Giving you my realistic, not the 27 votes that I troll you with. You're going to get about that much. Where's BLF going to end up? About 30,000 if they can even hit that much. This is really a big boy game. COPE, gone. ACDP may drop to 1 seat. ATM, maybe 1 seat. Good, maybe 1 seat. It's really not going to be a good election for these particular parties. Most of the 400 seats are going to the big players. And that's just the way the cookie crumbles. Now, we then have to think about, do we want a democracy which only has 3 players? Is that valuable? Or does that lose particular nuance because the big players don't have to address a multiplicity of issues? They can only address the signature key issues that they wish to. So is there space for a Daga party in the South African landscape? Maybe there is. There just won't be enough votes for the Daga party to emerge. Number 3, third observation. This election is not actually about this election. This election is about 2024. Everybody knows the ANC is going to manage the country for the next 5 years. Everybody knows that Cyril Ramaphosa is going to be the president. He's almost the curator of South African politics, the office, right? We need somebody who won't make whites panic, who won't make markets panic, who will be loved by the economists, Goldman Sachs, and all of these consultants and big money. That is what Cyril Ramaphosa is. He gives the ANC a breather, a time out, so to speak, so that they can re-strategize and really see if they can emerge into the game. This election is about what is the future of South Africa going to look like. And where do you measure that? You measure that in the dissenting voices, that being the Democratic Alliance and that being the EFF, to see whether or not the youth are buying into one or the other vision. Because the ANC is still benefiting a lot from the historical vote, the Mandela constituency, the Mbeki constituency. But that constituency is getting older. That constituency is dying. The future of Africa is the youth. The youth, whether you use a UN declaration definition or use an ANC definition, if we're looking at below 40, that's the youth. Then the question then becomes, whose politics is attractive to this demographic. Even if they didn't all register, even if, this election, they may not all show up, that's not really going to be the dynamic in 2024, because even those 20-year-olds will be 25-year-olds, etc., etc. Now, the DA has struggled, and I'm not attacking you, Luyolo Mpiti, or anybody who I like from the DA who we get along personally. This is not a personal attack. This is simply the way the cookie crumbles. The Democratic Alliance has failed to be attractive to young people in mass. The Democratic Alliance has failed to be attractive to young people in mass. That means you don't have a critical threshold of young people to be viable as a party in the future. And as your traditional voter base, which is white South Africans, either emigrates or passes away and they are young people, leave the country, your voter base may diminish dramatically. Young people, on the other hand, are choosing between the ANC and the EFF. And if you use universities as a sample space, which is reflective, and I think it is a viable sample space of the popularity of the EFF, you will find that young people are choosing, by and large, the EFF. This is why the EFF is running over 21 universities at an SRC level. This doesn't make me a lover of EFF. It is simply the facts on the ground. The fact that I recognize that the EFF is strong on the ground with the youth constituency is not my sucking Julius Malema's dick or anything like that. Sorry for the swearing, just putting it out there. It's the statistical reality on the ground. And you need to be able to appreciate that the youth are, by and large, buying into the Julius Malema rhetoric. They're buying into the ideological positions of the EFF, even if they are real criticisms to be aired to the characters themselves and to the party and its political ideologies. Right now, the youth are going this direction. So, if the EFF goes over the 12% mark, and I think they'll go well over it, that's going to indicate a large momentum for the EFF. And because of a ballooning effect in discussing their victory, they will probably have even more young people going there. The EFF has been very efficient, very streamlined, and very cogent in addressing a certain target market, which is poor young black people. They've been able to brand themselves as highly educated people by acquiring degrees. They've been able to acquire highly talented people such as Naledi Chirov, Vuyani Pambo, and several others to bolster their brand. And those young people are making waves in their communities, in their constituencies. And that adds to the legitimacy of the EFF for young people. You may not like it, you may not be encouraged by it, but that's the way the cookie crumbles. If you are not an EFF supporter, or if you are within the other demographics, be it DA, be it ANC, you need to seriously introspect and say, what about the value proposition that the EFF is offering is attractive to these young people? And how can we compete? How can we address their needs? The reality is poverty, unemployment, inequality, racism, gender oppression. All of these things have been effectively addressed by the EFF with more robust energy and ideological positionality with clarity than the other parties. Now, ANC people, here's the deal. You guys have always been talking about these things. Yes, you get those points. You guys were always marching to Bladen Zimandi's office before fees must fall. Yes, those things are true. But the ANC rhetoric and the ANC delivery, there's a mismatch with the rhetoric being here, the delivery being here. And people are beginning to spot that gap. And because you guys have tried and failed, they're going to give another group of people a chance. And this is part of what makes the EFF attractive. Not because you're not speaking from the same hymn book, so to speak, although there are discrepancies and Cyril speaks from a different hymn book than the ANC policy resolutions. But that's a story for another day. The reality is young people are attracted to the EFF. Now, what does this mean for 2024? This means that in 2024, the political dynamics in South Africa are going to lead to a shift which is more in line with the EFF's policy position, because by that time, they will be a stronger entity. If they emerge with well over 12% this time around, they may double that in the next election, because their rate of increase is over 100%. And if they maintain that, right, then they're going to be able to cross well over the 24-25% mark before the DA particularly does. Now, Democratic Alliance, you guys have been trying but failing. Musi Maimane doesn't even know what a black tax is. That's just a question mark. But you've just been failing to speak to the demographic about its needs. You oppose fees must fall. You oppose decolonization of university spaces. You opposed a lot of the issues young people care about. And you came late to the party, and your policy platform is still primarily one that speaks to the concerns of white South Africans, white corporate South Africa, to the exclusion of the concerns of everybody else who's actually the majority. Your party is in trouble. Now, let's talk numbers. Before this election got into full swing, the DA was speaking about getting 27%. The DA was speaking about that they're the only party that's growing from election to election, and that soon they will be the government in waiting. This election is going to be a reality check. So let's talk numbers. What are my projections? ANC, I'm projecting 62 to 65%. This is the same thing that I projected in January. What am I projecting for the EFF? I'm projecting between 15 and 18%. Even 19% if they have a strong turnout of vote. That's been my projection consistently. What am I projecting for the Democratic Alliance? I'm actually projecting 18 to 20%. I don't actually think that the Democratic Alliance is going to grow in this election. They're going to shrink. There are more people voting, even if you maintain all of your voters. The fact that you can't get new voters is going to mess you up in the next election. Those are my projections. Small parties going to be washed out. It's primarily going to be a big three election with 94 to 95% of the electorate voting for those three characters. Do the math and then you'll see what I'm talking about. Now, what's my fourth and final observation 7 days away from this particular race? You know how in Game of Thrones, the winter coming was the real issue and not the actual Game of Thrones? So everybody talks about jobs, 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 jobs. But there was no real discussion about how to deal with the nature of global commerce right now, with multinationals like Amazon and Tencent and all of these big players disrupting the traditional economic models and making it very difficult for small countries such as South Africa to compete on the global landscape. There was no discussion about the Chinese monopoly of manufacturing, how countries like Bangladesh also can sell at lower prices than you just because they abuse people and make children make their t-shirts and their sneakers. These kind of things were not discussed. So even though South Africa can beneficate its its mining and can improve its agro-processing locally, those are two industries. When it comes to the manufacturing, when it comes to the services sector, there was no real discussion about the white walkers that are coming to eat our economy. But further than that, there was no real discussion about the biggest white walker of them all, the biggest calamity that we are all facing, that of global warming. Projections are that in 12 years, it's going to be a wrap for us all. 12 years. We are all going to live in a world with more extreme weather, a world that is more environmentally hostile to the species known as Homo sapiens sapien. That's you, that's me. No real discussion in any of the manifestos, no real discussion in our African landscape about this particular issue. But 12 years is a short space of time. So while the NDP and everybody's chasing these economic goals, etc., what good are jobs going to do if the environment is hostile to your existence? What good are jobs going to do if extreme weather can come and wash away any factory that you build? We need to really, really think about this particular set of realities and how we need an Afro-collaborative effort to address these environmental harms, because Africa will be the biggest loser. The stuff that is happening in Mozambique, 2 cyclones, right? Idai and then Kenneth. In the space of 2 months, extreme weather events where over hundreds of people have been killed. The flooding in KZN. We've already seen extreme weather in America and other places. Now it's coming more dramatically to the African shores. This is no surprise, because the capitalistic model that the world adopted for the last 120 years has been one that pulled a finger to the environment and didn't give a damn, because the people who were pushing it were willing to throw the ball down the road and actually to absolve themselves of any environmental responsibility. And now we're living in the aftermath of that. But this is something that the South African political landscape has not adequately addressed, which I think is a dropped ball, considering that South Africa is an ideological and media leader on the continent, whether some other continental players like it or not. I'm not against Togo or anybody else watching this video from wherever you are. I'm just simply saying that South Africa dominates the media landscape, they dominate the political attention in terms of continentally, and they could have been a major player in addressing this particular issue, because it doesn't matter what Paul Kagame thinks. Nobody actually follows Paul Kagame on YouTube or TV or whatever, even though he's a questionable but effective leader. So South African voices are important voices. Julius Malema's voice is an important voice. Cyril Ramaphosa's voice is an important voice, one that is likely to be heard across the world and across the region. The failure to address these things has been problematic. So that's all I really wanted to discuss. There's going to be another episode tomorrow, which is more focused on the blow-by-blow stuff. But I'm very sorry that I haven't been able to do this as frequently as I hope that We Vote would be able to. It's rough, guys. The post office will lose your prizes. You will have business school, and that stuff can consume your time. And this thing of making YouTube videos is harder than it looks. It really requires discipline, dedication, determination, focus, and many other pieces behind the scenes. And I haven't been able to deliver effectively on that, but I'll try to make sure that at least in the last, laps, the last 6 laps, excluding this lap today, we can actually have a nice discussion about this particular phenomenon called South African elections. That's all the time we have for today. Tune in tomorrow, same time, same place. I'm Mighty Jamie. Thanks so much for listening and watching the video. Don't forget, they always comment, like, subscribe, share. Those things are somewhere here. I'm doing what the YouTubers do. But yeah, those things are there. Thanks so much for supporting this journey. Sorry for the absence. Life has been real. I've been trying. Also, I'm on Kaya FM on Thursdays in the evening if you like listening to African analysis, etc., on a show called Caribou. So you can tune into that. Otherwise, it's been real. See you in the next one.